So you've probably heard this story before, at least once, since I told it on the first Sunday that I was here. It's a story about an old man who comes into a village, walks right into the center of the village, finds a fire circle there, the well is there, but no people are there. And as he looks around, he sees people peeking through their curtains and, around the corner of the house and hiding behind the tree. He especially sees, Brian Pancost, because he's sniggering, and he could hear that. He looks around and he sees Judy Eckler, because with that hair, how could you miss her? Anyway, so nobody's coming out because they're all kind of afraid. So he sits down in the town square, opens his backpack, looks around the square, gathers together some vegetables. Gathers some wood, lights a fire, fills the pot with water from the well, and then he sits down and waits while the water is boiling. And pretty soon somebody peeks out, wonders what and their curiosity overcomes them. It's Andrea. She comes out and she says, "What are you doing?" And the old man picks up a stone and he puts it in the boiling water. He says, "I'm making stone soup. It's delicious. If you want to sit down and have some with me?" So she's very curious, so she sits down, and the old man says, "You know what makes really good stone soup? Carrots. You gotta have carrots." And Andrea says, "Well, I have carrots." So she ran home, got carrots, brought them back. They talked as they chopped it up and threw it in there, and then pretty soon the old man says, "Boy, this is starting to smell good." And pretty soon, Chase Cluding can't control his curiosity no more, and he comes out and wants to know what's going on. And the old man explains that it's stone soup, and they're sitting there chatting for a while. And pretty soon, the old man says, "You know what makes really good stone soup? Onions." Chase says, "My mom's got onions. I'll get them." And he's off. And he comes back. They chop up the onions. They cry together, which is always good for starting a friendship. And they throw them in, and it begins to smell even better. And then one after another, people come out and begin to add things to the soup. And then they bring out the bowls, and they start singing and talking together and having a great time with one another. Something new has happened in this village that hadn't happened before. They share out the soup with one another, and they enjoy not only the company and the fellowship, but they enjoy a nourishing soup, which now has every ingredient that you can imagine in it, and the aroma is overwhelming. And the old man, when it's all done, pulls out the stone and tosses it aside. And the next day, the old man packs up his backpack and heads off to the next town. That's a familiar story. Some of you who are teachers told me that you were telling that story. Betty said you told that story years ago to your elementary school classes. But you know what that story is about. It's about the fact that a community has so many resources and so many nourishing and helpful pieces. And the key thing is for them to realize that what they are together is much more delicious and much more savory and much more nourishing than anything that they have apart from each other. The old man, who might be John the Baptist or who might be me, doesn't really bring anything to that soup at all. The water was from the well and the stone was off the ground. But what he was for them was a catalyst. The thing that caused the people in town to come together and be willing to share themselves with each other, to bring their first fruits, to bring their best things, to add to the soup that the community, in fact, was making. So the man coming into town really contributes nothing physical to that soup, and yet when he leaves as nourished and refreshed, both by the community that he has drawn together around himself and by the thing that they have created and produced together. So that catalyst physically and really is nothing, and yet it brought together the things that the community already had. I told you on the Sunday that I arrived that was my job, was to be the old man with the stone who started the soup, and that what we created here in this place during the time that I would be here would be something that you all mostly created for us. And feel free to tell me I was right? Because my wife says that's my love language, to be told I'm right. But that is what has happened here in these last 18 months, in my experience. That you all showed up in this place, even though it was a transitional time, even though you didn't know what the future held, even though you might have said, I'm not coming back till the new pastor comes because I don't want to get whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you didn't. You showed up, and you didn't just show up physically, you showed up spiritually, and you showed up emotionally. You showed up and were open to one another and to one another's gifts. You were open in an ability to communicate with one another and to begin to say the things to each other that you needed for them to know. And I just want to point out that was the thing, the lack of that was the thing that caused your conflict at the end of Adrian's pastorate. Was that you had strong feelings, but you didn't use the structures you had to get those feelings and those issues resolved. And you talked to each other instead of to the people who could actually change things. What I have noticed in my time with you is that you haven't done that. So, the old man who came in with his stick and his backpack and his stone, I think has proven that you guys have the resources and the abilities and the interpersonal skills and the ability to communicate, to be an effective congregation, because you are. I listened, when I left the day like today, that I left my first interim, and I had come in following the sudden death of the pastor. And so I was there for almost 2.5 years. And on the last Sunday, they were saying all these things in church about me. I mean, it was just like, I could see the truth in what they were saying, but it was like, what they were saying was this much. The truth was here, and what they were saying was here. And I wasn't being falsely modest. I was just perplexed. Who was this man they were describing? And my wife, wise woman that she is, she said, part of that was truly yours, and you earned it. Part of it was for Andy, who died, and they couldn't say those things to Andy because he died suddenly. And it was my privilege to be the one that gave them the chance to say a proper goodbye to him. So the power of this moment, you all brought a lot here, and I brought things here and tried to be a catalyst for you to work through them and to think about your future. And I think that has largely happened. I came here for a couple of reasons. And I told you on my first Sunday, I said there's 2 parts to my title: interim and pastor. Interim meaning I'm going to be here for a set period of time, and then I'm going to leave. And I have a certain set of tasks that I need to accomplish before I leave that are apart from the normal pastoral set of tools. But the second part is pastor, and that I will be your real pastor. Remember how I said you'd get slapped if you said we're waiting for the real pastor? I am the real pastor. at least for a few more hours. But that happened. I mean, we did the work that we needed to do, to think and to reflect and to get ready, to give the guidance to the pastoral nominating committee that they needed to select the appropriate leadership for the next chapter in your church's story. And they did that. A very diverse group of people who I wouldn't have imagined all of them agreeing about anything came to us with a unanimous and excited and enthusiastic recommendation that you call James Hodgson to be your next pastor. And I have to say that I am not always really, really pleased with the people that my churches call as their next pastor. But I bite my tongue and I smile and I be as supportive as I can be. But that's not the case in this case. James has made more use of the things that I know than any pastor coming in after my interim time has ever done. He and I have had 6 or 7 hour and a half long conversations, and he comes to each one with an agenda of things he wants to know that I know and that no one else maybe knows. So we did that thing, and we did it successfully together. But we also, I told you that I don't love my transitional pastor churches any less than I ever loved the people in my settled ministry. And that has certainly been true here. I have, from day one, I have felt like I was your pastor and that you honored that role. And you honored me by sharing important facts about your life that maybe not everyone knows, your questions, your challenges. We've also had a great deal of fun. I've also been fed very well in various homes throughout the last year, which I really appreciate. But I came to be your interim pastor, and I feel like we accomplished what God called me here to accomplish. And that isn't just what I accomplished, it's what we have accomplished together. Isaiah is writing to the people in Babylon who are in exile. And he is getting them ready for the next chapter in their life with God. They don't know it yet, but the Persian army is getting ready to march against Babylon. They think they've been there 50 years, they're going to be there forever. Maybe they should just forget about Yahweh and about Jerusalem and about Israel, and they should just become Babylonians and forget about it. And Isaiah is telling them, no. Yahweh has a plan, and Yahweh is faithful. And in that passage that we read, he uses things like, and he divided the waters, and he called forth the chariots and the armies, and they were extinguished like a wick. Isaiah's helping them to look back, not look backward in the sense that they want to turn around and go backwards, but looking back at the evidence that God is faithful in the worst of circumstances. And he's telling them that about the past because he wants them not to look at the past, he wants them to look at the future. Your future looks uncertain. You are frightened and anxious about what is coming. The only thing I want you to remember about the past is that I am faithful to you. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Even now it's breaking forth. Do you not perceive it? And that's how I feel about this congregation. You guys have the resources that you need to be an effective arm of the body of Christ. You have what you need to go out into this community and to manifest, to be the love of God in the midst of Norwalk and Huron County. You are awesome. You are prepared. You are resourced. And what you need now is the catalyst for that new chapter. The reality is that's who James is. He's the catalyst that's going to make your gifts come together and ignite. He is also an old man with a backpack and a staff. He probably won't have a physical one when he comes here in a couple weeks. But he is here to make stone soup with you also. It'll be a different kind of soup, but it'll all be made by the ingredients that you bring and the ingredients that he catalyzes. Something new is coming. Behold, I am doing a new thing. I can't tell you what that is, but I can tell you that looking out at you and thinking about the time we've spent in the last year and a half, I am confident that the right leader is here, that all the pieces are in place, and that you know how to do what needs to be done. As long as you're willing to bring your carrots and your onions and your avocados and whatever else you're going to throw in, because we need every last ingredient. We need protein. We need green vegetables. We need spices. We need music. We need Sunday school teachers. We need mission people. We need lay readers. We need ushers. We need people who are willing to be tutors to people who are learning English for the first time. We need all of those fruits and vegetables that you all have in spades. So you can throw them in this pot along with James's stone and make something amazing for the future. Being here has been a blessing to me in so many ways, professionally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. To have a year and a half to spend in my old home stomping grounds at this point in my life, which, if you're becoming an old person, that the psychological phase that we're in and when we're starting into our 60s is life review. And to be able to be here near Huron and to interview my ghosts and haunt the old places has been really helpful to me, and really it has felt like being home. And being a part of your church has just given me a renewed strength and renewed hope for the life of Christ's church in the world. I know that there are decent, hardworking, Jesus-loving people at work making the world a better place and not a worse place. So it has been my privilege to be your pastor, and I will never forget you. I might forget your names because there's just so much room in my brain. And so old ones go back into dead storage and the new ones start filling up here. So if I come back to visit and I say, don't be embarrassed and don't be offended. It's just I haven't brought it out from dead storage to put it back in the right place.